Hello everyone. So in this session, I am going to discuss the remaining part of chapter number 11. So in this chapter, in the previous recorded session, we talked about monopolistic competition. And now that is one form of imperfectly competitive market structure or imperfect competition. And now we discuss oligopoly market structure. And I told you that oligopoly market structure is very close to monopoly market structure. And what I mean to say is that there's less competition in this market structure. So let's examine oligopoly market structure in more details. So these are the characteristics of an oligopoly market structure. Number one, as I said earlier in the previous recorded session, it is dominated by a few large firms. That is, four firms concentration ratio should be greater than 40%. Entry by new firms is difficult. That is another important characteristic of this market. Non-price competition between firms is widely practiced for differentiated product. When I say differentiated products, it means that we may have identical products as well. So now let me once again talk about the type of product. In perfect competition, we have identical products. In monopolistic competition, we have differentiated products, not identical products. In monopoly market structure, there's unique product. In this market, that is oligopoly, we have both types. So we do have differentiated products and undifferentiated products or identical products. I'll give you some examples as well. Now, each firm has significant control over its price. Why? Because these firms are large firms, have very high market share. Mutual interdependence exists between firms. So these firms are mutually interdependent, unlike monopolistic competition, where firms are operating independently. Here, these firms are interdependent. So one firm's action will depend on other firm's action. Okay. So these are the examples. So products can be either homogeneous. By homogeneous, I mean identical, basically. For example, steel industry, aluminum industry, lumber industry, paper industry. These are examples of oligopoly market structure. But remember, the product is identical. Steel. Steel is steel. But you will not find 500 different steel mills in a country, right? Because it requires huge fixed investment. For differentiated oligopoly or differentiated oligopoly market, tobacco, breweries, major appliances, electronic goods, batteries, and automobiles. So automobile industry is a good example of differentiated oligopoly market structures. So, for example, these automobiles are not identical. Okay, so Toyota and uh, Ford, they are different. So Toyota RAV4 and Ford Escape, they are different, right? Although both are SUVs, if I'm not wrong, right? But they are slightly different. So some of the examples of oligopoly market structure are General Motors, General Foods, General Tires, General Electric, Philips, Nikon, and Apple. So I've already discussed that entry is difficult and there is mutual interdependence, and that is the problem. In perfect competition, all small farmers, they are just deciding their own level of production given prices. Monopoly is there's no competition basically in monopoly. There's one firm in the industry, whole industry. In monopolistic competition, firms are interdependent. So one firm is not actually, so one Chinese restaurant does not actually in Edmonton does not, determine its production based on another restaurant in Calgary, right? It has nothing to do with that restaurant. At least they are independent. But in this market structure, a firm's action depend on the reactions of rival firms. So they're basically competing among each other as well, unless they collude. Because of the mutual interdependence and the uncertainty about how firms will react to pricing and output changes. So suppose there are two firms and they're producing very similar product, not 100% identical, but similar product, right? Let's say soft drink. If one firm reduces its price, that firm does not know what other firm will do, whether it will match the price or will not match the price. You don't know. So this is type of uncertainty that always be there. And therefore, there's no single oligopoly theory of price and output. So in perfect competition, we have one rule: price equal marginal cost, and then we determine the price, and then we calculate profit using average cost. In monopoly market, we first find the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost, then we read the price at demand curve, and then we calculate the average cost at that level of production, and we take the difference per unit profit and then multiply by output, total profit. Simple, one rule. In monopolistic competition, one rule: marginal revenue equal marginal cost, read the price on the demand curve, calculate the average cost curve, we calculate per unit profit, price minus average cost, and then we multiply by the level of production, and that will give you profit. Simple. In oligopoly, there's no one solution because these firms are interdependent. So you don't know what other firms will do. So you have different possibilities. So for example, I just give you, we are not going to discuss. This is just an example to help you understand. So for example, if I am a producer and if I reduce the price of my product, I have two possibilities. The other firm might also reduce. So we have a different model. And if the other firm will not decrease its price, we have a totally different model. So you have two models. Why you have two models? Because you don't know what other firms is going to do. So we will discuss four different options, four different possibilities. So let's discuss four models, different models in oligopoly market structure. So number one is collusion, an agreement among suppliers to set the price of a product or the quantities each will produce. So that is one solution. Rather than competing among each other, that okay, if I do this, what other firms will do, they sit together and decide how much to produce or how many units to produce and how much to charge. So that is what we call collusion. And then they divide the market based on so many different factors: location, output quota, and fixed price. So for example, suppose sometimes they use output quota. So the example is basically OPEC countries. Right. So Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. These countries actually form a cartel. They produce crude oil, and each country has a specific output quota. So for example, I'm just giving you an example, right? Because I can't give you all 13 countries and then give the actual data. It's not possible for me. Let's take only three countries. So A, B, C. Let's say the quota for country A is 20%. The quota for country B is 30%, and the quota of country C is 50%, right? Let's say C is Saudi Arabia, right? So Saudi Arabia has a, let's say large quota because they can produce more. So this is the quota. Now, how they are going to produce oil and sell. So this is the quota. A cannot produce more than 20% of the total product. B cannot produce more than, and they decide that we are going to produce only this much of output. So they fix the output and then charge according to their demand curve. Let's say that their profit is 100. Remember, I said their profit, all three countries together, because they colluded and they are actually producing jointly and making this $100 profit. Why they are doing this? Because each country is assigned a quota so that they can't produce more. They don't want to increase the supply in the market, that will reduce the price. So they are artificially restricting the supply. Why? To charge higher prices. So suppose they are charging high prices and their overall profit is $100. This $100 is then distributed among these three countries according to their share. So out of $100, 20% means $20. So $20 will get this country A, $30 will earn by country B, and country C will earn $50. So this is the distribution, right? So this is the distribution based on output quota. So that is one possible solution. That is what we call collusion. Okay. The other solution is, and that is very complicated and tricky and also interesting, right? We have a whole course on game theory at advanced levels, right? So if you're doing your PhD or MS in economics, that you can take this topic as a whole course, game theory. What is game theory? A method of analyzing firm behavior that highlights mutual interdependence among firms. So now there is mutual interdependence. There's no collusion. So these firms are competing among each other. So how we are going to model this theory? We have a simple model, and this is what we call duopoly market. Duopoly is also an oligopoly market structure. Oligo means several, duo means two. So duopoly means that we are assuming that there are only two firms. So there are only two firms. Sorry, it's very difficult to write on the screen. So we are just assuming that there are two firms. Why? Because if we assume five firms, it would be very difficult to draw payoff metrics, which I'm going to show you. So 2 by 2 matrix is easy to analyze. But yes, at advanced level, we do have more than 2 by 2 matrix. So we are assuming two firms. Two firm means duopoly. In monopoly, mono means one. So in monopoly, we have one firm. In duopoly, we have two firms. In oligopoly, we have several firms. Then firms. So I said two firms. So in this theory, we call these firms as players. This is the jargon that we use in game theory literature, right? But you could have said firms as well. There's no harm in it. Third is strategies. So each firm, of course, we can't analyze 500 different strategies for firm A and 500 strategies for firm B. Then we have 50 by 50 metrics. So we have 50 by 50 possibilities. That if I choose strategy one, the other firm will choose any strategy from 1 to 50. So look at the combinations, too many, right? Too many. So what I'm going to assume that we have only two strategies as well, instead of 3, 4, 5, just two strategies. So each firm has two strategies, but the firm does not know what other firm will choose. And then payoffs or returns. By payoff or returns, I mean why these firms are using these strategies to earn profits. Okay, so basically payoffs or return means profits. Now let's discuss one simple game first. So this is a very popular example, prisoner dilemma. And by dilemma I mean when you choose from two bad things, basically. So this is the meaning of dilemma, right? So both are bad and you have to choose one of them. So this is the game. What is the game? Look at this game. There are two players. Basically, there are two criminals, two strategies, and they are caught. So they are caught and being investigated or interrogated, to be more specific. What are the two strategies for these two criminals? They have two strategies: either to confess that yes, they have they have committed this crime, or they don't confess. So these are the two options. Payoffs. What is the return? The return is they are going to serve in jail in terms of number of years. So this is number of years in prison. And the important assumption is that there's no collusion. So they are not colluding. So their actions are 100% independent. So player A does not know at all what player B will say, whether player B will confess or will not confess, but they were caught together. Okay. So now give you numbers, right? So this is a one game. It's a 2 by 2 matrix you can see on your screen, right? So you have two, okay, they are saying competitors, but that's fine. So there are two competitors, A and B. There are two strategies: confess, not confess, confess, not confess. And the numbers inside these cells are number of years in jail, right? So 4 means 4 means 4 years in jail, 4 years in jail. The upper belongs to A, the bottom belongs to B. Okay, so green is B. I don't know what color you see on your screen, but it looks as if it's brownish, I believe. So this is a strategy. Right? Now each lettered cell of this 4-cell payoff this matrix represents the jail terms in years that both A and B would receive under various conditions. So suppose if this is a game, and let's assume that you are individual B. What is your best strategy? And that is why we call it prisoner dilemma. That is a dilemma, because in both cases you will end up in a jail, right? So you can reduce your jail terms, but you will not be released anyways, right? So what is the best solution for you? Because you don't know what A will do. You don't know. But of course, your decision will depend on A's decision as well. Because if you see that, for example, if you see that, if I confess, I get only 4 years. If I don't confess, I get 12 years. Okay. So which one you choose? Are you going to choose confess and get 4, and not confess get 12? But why this analysis is incomplete, and I intentionally did this. I have circled only this 4 and this 12. This 12. I don't know. I don't know whether I will even end up with this 4 or this 12. Why? Because it depends on A. For example, if I choose this confess, I might not get 4. I might get 1 as well. Why 1? Because if A chooses not confess, then this is the relevant box. So that is the problem. How we are going to determine? So the solution is proposed by John Nash, and this is what we call Nash equilibrium. So John Nash actually gave you this process of calculating equilibrium. That is the best solution, and this equilibrium is called Nash equilibrium. So let's solve this game, and then we have two other games that you have to do. So I'm just discussing this game. See, so this is what I'm going to do. This is how we calculate Nash equilibrium. First question: suppose what I'm going to find out that what is the best strategy for both A and B, right? So A by L's or B by Bill. So I kept saying A and B. I should have changed this. I'm sorry, but that's fine. It will not impact any. It will not impact our results anyways. So first we start with L's, right, or A's strategy. Now look at this. If A, the first I pick these two. I will mark this, right, with okay, blue is fine. So first I will ask this question. If A confesses, okay, what is the best strategy for B? So I'm still discussing B's strategy, because of course B's strategy will depend on A's strategy. So what I assume for the time being, this is the assumption, I don't know what A will do, but if I assume that suppose A confesses, what is the best option for B? So if B confesses, then B will get 4 years. If B does not confess, then B will get for 12 years. Okay. So what is the best strategy for Bill? Best strategy is confess. But under what condition? Under the condition that A must choose confess. If it doesn't choose confess, then I don't know what is the best strategy for player B. So which is shown here, you can see here. So B's best strategy would be to confess, because 4 years is less than 12 years. Okay. Now we do the same analysis for the other possibility. I will show you in the next slide, but I'm intentionally showing you in the same slide so that you can compare. So I will erase everything and just tell you one thing. When we assume that A confesses, the best strategy for B was confess, if you remember, right? So I'm marking a star here. Okay. Now change the assumption. And now I'm changing the assumption. So I am just erasing this. Right? I'm erasing this. And now I assume that suppose A does not confess. Then what is the best strategy for B? So if B confesses, B will be in jail for 1 year. And if B doesn't confess, then B will spend 2 years in jail. So one is better than spending 2 years. So once again, B's best strategy is confess. So notice what happens. In both cases, it doesn't matter whatever A chooses, whether confess or not confess, B will always choose confess. If you find this case, then we call that, or we say that B's dominant strategy would be to confess. So this is B's dominant strategy. So B's dominant strategy is confess. I don't know about A's dominant strategy, but I know about B. I do the same analysis for A and find A's dominant strategy as follows. Let's see this. So this is, I've already done that. If A chooses non-confess, then B's best strategy once again to confess. So I'm very much sure that B's best strategy or dominant strategy would be to confess. Doesn't matter what A does, right? So whatever be the A's strategy, B will always choose confess strategy. Now we do the same process with B. So B's dominant strategy is to confess. So I've just find one solution, right? One answer. Now we do the same thing for A. But this time I'm comparing horizontally. So first I assume, see, I'm not going to repeat this. I assume that B, suppose chooses this confess. What is the A's best strategy? A best strategy is to confess. Why? Because 4 is less than 12. If B chooses not confess, suppose, then A's best strategy is still confess. Why? Because this number is less than this number. That is 1 is less than 2. So, so it means that doesn't matter what B chooses, A will always choose confess. Why I'm saying this? Because when A will choose his or her strategy, A does not know about B's strategy. We have already found out that B's dominant strategy is confess, but A doesn't know. And we calculated dominant strategy of B assuming that B does not know what A will do. Similarly, A's dominant strategy would be confess, doesn't matter what B will choose. So notice that we have seen here that both A and B has a dominant strategy, and this is the dominant strategy. So for individual A is confess, individual B is confess. So this is called Nash equilibrium. This is how we calculate Nash equilibrium. Solution of this game, if there's no collusion, is this. That is 4 years and 4 years. Notice that if they colluded, for example, before committing a crime, if they both sat down and decided that, okay, if we are caught, we will have to stick to no confess strategy, then they could have spent only 2 years and 2 years. So if there's a collusion, then it's 2 years and 2 years. But again, there's always a possibility of cheating. So it's always risky. So if the game is played repeatedly, right, more than one time, then at the last time, there's always a cheating. So for example, if they are caught, these two persons were caught fifth time, and they know that after this time they are not going to involve in any criminal activities, then the chances are that one of them will cheat and will spend only 1 year in the jail and uh, have their partner spend 12 years in the jail, because you can see, suppose if B cheats, instead of uh, so suppose A actually pick not confess, and B cheats and says, okay, yeah, I confess, and will get only 1 year, and A will get 12 years, right? But you don't need to worry about repeated games and this difficult possibilities. Just you should know how to calculate Nash and this difficult possibilities. Just you should know how to calculate Nash equilibrium in a 2 by 2 matrix. Then we have so many other examples. This is another example. Remember, by shekels, this is a currency, and this is a payoff, cheat, don't cheat, cheat, don't cheat. So this is another game. Solution is already given here, so you have to go through. Now see this, it says one-time game. So one-time game means this is just one-time game, so it's not repeated. So there's always a possibility of cheating. So you can easily find the Nash equilibrium, and notice that Nash equilibrium once again is only profit of $11 and $11. They could have easily increased their profit to $17 and $17, but because one firm does not know what other firm will do, so both firms will not take any risk. So you see the solution as well. This is the repeated game with reciprocity. Repeated game with reciprocity means that these are the two firms, and these two firms are playing every time. So they actually collude in a sense that they allow one firm to make abnormal profit in 1 year, and then the other firm will be allowed by the first firm to make abnormal profit next time. So this is the example. So if if these two firms will play without any collusion, then the solution you can check. And if you have difficulty, then you can always ask me. Then the solution will be this 10 and this 10, this 11 and this 11 in both. So these are repeating games. There are two games, right? So in both games, they will always choose promo budget and will get this profit. So the total profit is $21 each in two games. But see, if they collude and one firm allow other firms to make abnormal profit, right? So for example, let's see here, then I'll show you. So remember 21 and 21. Yeah. So if, for example, if they choose first in the first game, they choose option B. What is B cell? B cell tells you that this firm, thirst Q firm, will allow this two cools firm to make $16 profit, and thus Q will only earn $8, but only in this game. In the next game, because of the reciprocity, uh, uh, cool firm will allow thus firm to make more money, that is $15, and cool firm will earn only 10. So see what is happening. If you join these together, then this is 8 plus 15, which is definitely 23 greater than $21 earlier. And look at this 60 and 10, 26, which is also greater than 21, right? So if they collude in this fashion, I should not have used the word collude. This is not collude. This is basically they are playing game, but reciprocity. Reciprocity means that you will help me in one round, and then the other firm will help. The first firm will help in one round, the other firm will help in the other round. So just go through the solution as well. Then we have sequential games, right? So you don't have to, since this is in your textbook, you don't need to worry about playing sequential game, because we have different structure of that uh, sequential game that is beyond the I believe jurisdiction of this course. But you should know, by sequential game I mean that two players are going to make their decisions not at the same time. Notice here, if I go take you back to this prisoner dilemma uh, payoff matrix, right? This is the game, right? But A and B are making their decision at the same time. At the same time. If it is sequential, then the result will be different. Okay. So may be or may not be, in this case may not be, but may be different. By sequential I mean first player will make a decision, and then second player will make a decision based on what player number one has made. So player two knows that what player has one has already chosen. So it's much easier, right? So it all depends who is the first mover. Okay, let me go back and then read the definition and then discuss one application. So firms apply strategies sequentially, one by one, not at the same time. Okay. Final outcome depends on who moved first, of course. So first mover advantage, you must have heard this, right? First mover advantage, right? So first mover will always have advantage if both firms know all possible strategies. Then I will make a decision, right, based on everything. And I'll show you one example. And so rival must respond, right? Okay. So first mover advantage, advantages for the firm that is first, may be better prepared, may preempt entry of rivals. Let me show you a payoff matrix and then show you whoever moves first will win. See this payoff matrix. So this is the payoff matrix. So there are two firms, big box and huge box, and they have two strategies. Uh, Okay, so let me read here rather than build strategy to achieve a 12 million profit. Okay, so build strategy means you have to build the whole uh, plant, right? Your plant, and in a new space, of course, new location. And similarly, huge box also have two strategies: build and don't build. Right now, if you look at this, I mm, have chosen this option. Actually, cell C is chosen as an equilibrium, right? How do I know that this is the equilibrium? Because if you see here that big box moves first. So big box, that is this firm will move first. So now this firm has all these information in all these cells and then make a decision, which is much easier, right? So now see, if I know that if I choose this, if a big box chooses this, okay, what is the option for huge box? Huge box has two options: either to build and earn -$5 million, or don't build and earn $0. Okay, so if you big box if big box decides to build its new plant, huge box has no incentive to build, because huge box is not maximizing the other firm's losses, but minimizes its own losses, right? And therefore there's a loss for huge box, and therefore huge box will actually not even enter this market, right? Similarly, if big box decides this strategy, that is, or chooses this strategy, don't build, then you can see the huge box will always choose build. Why build? Because then huge box will make $12 million, and don't build. Of course, if you're not building, then your profit is zero. So in both cases, your profit is zero, right? So this is the first mover advantage. Since big box is a first mover, big box will always build. Why always build? Because then it will deter huge box to enter this market, and huge box will not enter this market. Now let's totally reverse the case. If I reverse the case and assume that huge box moves first, then huge box knows that if huge box moves first, huge box will always decides to build its plant. Why? Because once huge box decides to build, and now big box has to make a decision, right? Has to choose between these two. Then big box has no option but to choose don't build, and out of the market, zero profit, and huge box will get $12, right? So if I recolor this, then you will see that you have two possibilities. Either you have this solution, if big box enters this industry first, or this solution, if huge box enters this industry first. Okay. Okay, I've already discussed collusion or collusive oligopoly, and remember I gave you the example of cartel as well, so I don't have to uh, redo this here. This is the diagram for cartel. I've already discussed here that these countries, what they are doing actually, they are decreasing the supply. Look at this supply. They could have easily produced here, but they are producing less supply. Why? Because of the output quota. So these countries are, colluding and deciding to restrict the output. Why? So that they can charge very high price. Why I have drawn this uh, very inelastic demand curve? Because the demand for crude oil is pretty inelastic. Okay. Then we have non-collusive oligopoly. There's no collusion. What would happen? That is another possibility. Look at this price leadership. What is price leadership model? So when rival firms engage in what amounts to price fixing without overt collusion. So by overt collusion means uh, not hidden. We all know that OPEC countries are colluding. Collusion is illegal in Canada, by the way. So this is basically covert collusion, right? This is a hidden collusion. Right? It's not clear, but it is. Uh, some firms are actually practicing this strategy or using this strategy. See this. A leader, usually the largest or most efficient firms, sets price and other firms follow. That is the model. That is, suppose if there are 50 firms and one firm is very large and controls half of the market, then small firms cannot compete with that large firms. So the large firm will set the price and all other firms will have to follow. Why follow? Let me give you a simple example. Suppose one firm, which is very large firm, is selling its product, let's say for $10, right? And if a small firm tries to be smart and decides, why not we charge slightly lower price and sell more and fix the price at $8. The moment the small firm will do this or lower its price, the large firm will reduce its price to $5 only. Why? Because since they are producing on large scale, their average cost is much lower than small firms. And therefore, small firms cannot survive if the price is $5 because maybe their average cost is $6. They can't survive. They're not going to sell at per unit losses. And therefore, a small firm will have to exit the market. So because of this fear, when large firms or price leader sets the price, it is basically covert collusion. It is understood that you have to follow this leader and stay in the market. There's no harm in it, right? So best example is cereal industry. So Kellogg's is a leader. So Kellogg's normally set the price and all the small firms will follow. So that is one model. But last point is important. The difficult part for this leader firm is to balance the advantages of a price increase with the risks of creating an opening for new entrants. So, for example, if this leader set the price very high, let's say $25, you know what happens? Then, yes, maybe small firm will still follow this, but new firms will enter this industry as well. It is possible. I'm not saying that entry is impossible. It's difficult, but it is possible. So leader will set the price in such a way that a small firm, existing firm can follow and new firm cannot enter. So that's a difficult task. Then we have another solution, and this is called King Demand Curve Theory. This is also called Paul Sweezy solution. What is this theory? This theory is based on one important reality, basically. And what is that reality? Don't worry about the diagram. First, just let me explain what is basically King Demand Curve. Okay, let's discuss first diagram. Look at this. So basically, there are two diagrams here, two demand curves, two different demand curves. One demand curve is this. The other demand curve is this, right? So we have, sorry. So, okay, I don't know why zoom in. Okay. So, sorry. Just give me a sec. Let me fix this. I don't know what is happening. Hold on. So basically, you have D1 demand curve and you have D2 demand curve. So you have two demand curve, D1 demand curve and D2 demand curve. Notice that D1 demand curve is inelastic and D2 demand curve is elastic. But the only thing in this diagram that the one portion of the same demand curve is bold red line and the other part is dotted lines. Why we have done this? To explain you that there's a rule that whenever one firm reduces its price, the other firm will match that price in order to stay in the market if the products are homogeneous or identical or very similar. And when one firm increases its price, the other firm will not follow. Why will not follow? Why to follow? If you don't follow, you will have a larger market share because customers will divert it or will divert from higher price to lower price producer. So because of this reason, which is written here on your slide as well, that is, if a firm drops price, rivals or other firms will also drop price. So demand is inelastic below the current price. So basically what I'm saying is this. If you, let me mark here. So if you decrease price, then this portion of the demand curve doesn't exist because both firms will operate here. And look at this part, this is more inelastic curve, inelastic, okay? Because both are decreasing their price. Why is it? So what I mean to say is that if you decrease price, normally demand increases a lot, right? Because if one firm decreases its price and other firm does not, then all consumers will buy from the producer with a lower price. But this is not the case because both firms are reducing their price at the same time. So there's no change, much change in the demand, right? Because you can't, demand will increase, but not that much, right? And if one firm increases its price, then other firm will not follow, will not follow. And the demand curve will be this part. Why this part? Because this part is irrelevant. Why this part irrelevant? Because prices are higher on this curve compared to this curve. Prices are higher in this curve compared to this curve. So let me erase it. I'm sorry if I'm creating mess, but what I'm trying to show you here, that if you have two separate demand curves, the effective demand curve is the lower portion. That is what I am trying to convince you. That is, this is the lower, sorry, this is the lower portion, right? Of the two demand curve, this is the lower portion. And then this is the lower portion of the two demand curve. So demand curve looks like this, and this. So here you have a kink. Kink means a turning two demand curve. So demand curve looks like this, and this. So here you have a kink. Kink means a turning point. That is why we call it kink demand curve, because there's a kink. Why there's a kink? Because price firms are following prices not all the time. If one firm decreases price, all firms or rivals will follow. If firm increases its price, rivals will not follow. Because of this, we have kink. Now, the only problem with this theory is that we don't know where is this kink, that is this P1. So one can argue that these two demand curve will create a kink at P1. Why not at some price less than P1 or greater than P1? So we don't know. We don't know. The theory does not explain why kink is at P1. But wherever the kink is, we have one theory, which I'm going to show you in the, first let me upload the blank workbook. Why workbook? Is whiteboard. I'm sorry. Blank whiteboard. So I'm drawing this diagram. I have already drawn in my lecture notes, I believe, but you will not find in the PowerPoint slides, right? So I am just explaining you this king demand curve theory. So first I will draw king demand curve. So king demand curve looks like this. So sorry, it's difficult to draw, so I'm just sorry, it's not that neat. Okay, so king demand curve looks like this. So I did not draw the dotted part of the demand curve. There's no point drawing the dotted line. Okay. So if I had drawn dotted lines, looks like this. This is the dotted line. This is the dotted line. But I just did not. Let me erase this dotted line because we are not going to use this dotted line, right? So there's no such dotted line. Okay. So that is your king demand curve. Now, if you have remember, this is king demand curve, which is a combination of two different demand curves. Remember, so you must have two different marginal revenues curve. And I told you the rule of drawing marginal revenue curve. So the upper portion of the demand curve, if I draw a marginal revenue curve, so marginal revenue curve would also start from here, and it will go. Sorry, it is very flatter because the demand curve is also very flatter, right? So let me. So it will go like this, let's say. And I stop here. At the king, I stop here because demand is now demand curve has changed. I could have continued if I had this. Okay, let me change the color and then show you so that you don't get confused. So if I had this demand curve, then yes, marginal revenue curve would be shaped like this, right? But I'm only blue portion is relevant, right? Because the red demand curve doesn't exist. Now, then I draw another marginal revenue curve for the second portion of the demand curve, that is inelastic portion of the demand curve. So that portion looks like this. This is right. Okay. So if I'm sorry if I'm complicating the diagram, but I'm sure you'll understand. So if I extend this diagram here, right? So the marginal revenue curve look like this, right? So what is happening actually, if you look at this, so I am just just erasing everything, right? Because I don't want to draw this dotted line, right? But I just wanted to show you how it looks like. Now I am drawing the demand and marginal revenue curve neat and clean. Right? So this is king demand curve. This is marginal revenue curve. Now notice there's a gap here because there's a discontinuity. Why? Because there's a kink here. At the kink, the marginal revenue stops here and then it starts from here. There's nothing in between actually, right? It's the same. And right. So marginal revenue, uh, is slopes downward up to this point, and then there's a gap like this. Let me mark it dotted like this, and then this, right? Okay. So this is marginal revenue. Now I'm drawing marginal cost curve because in the level of production in this theory is similar to the monopoly or monopolistic competition. That is marginal revenue equal marginal cost. So I have marginal revenue, but I don't have marginal cost. So let me draw marginal cost curve. So I draw marginal cost curve with a different color. So let's say I draw marginal cost curve like this. So this is marginal cost curve. So this is the intersection point, right? Which is nothing but the same level, that is at kink. See, at kink. And this is the price. Same price. Okay, same price. This is marginal cost curve. Now, this is what I wanted to, explain you. Suppose the marginal cost increases, that is, cost of production increases for this farm. What would happen? The marginal cost will shift upward slightly. So I'm shifting the marginal cost curve. Let's check. See, marginal cost shift. despite increasing the cost of production, notice what is happening. This marginal cost and marginal revenue is same at the same level of output. Same price. There's no change in price. So Paul Sweeney actually argued that in some oligopoly markets or industries, even if the cost of production is increasing, firms are charging you the same price. They might reduce their profit margin, but they cannot charge you higher price. Why? Because if they charge higher prices, other firms will not follow, and you will not make your money, because you will be, you are losing customers if you charge higher prices and other firm will not follow. So in this diagram, you can see why. What is the reason? The reason is because of this kink. Because of this kink, if marginal cost increases in this range, there's no change in price. Price is same. So this is also called sticky price model. So actually, Paul Sweeney explained that why in some markets prices are not increasing despite the fact that cost of production is increasing. And the reason is that the this logic that firms are matching decrease in prices but not increase in prices, and because of this you have a sticky price. So sometimes you call it a sticky price model, sometimes you call Paul Sweeney's solution. That is, this is a solution that why prices are sticky in this industry, in these types of, not all of these industries, but mostly in oligopoly market structure. You have noticed in soft drink industry, the price of Coke and Pepsi more or less very stable. What do you think? The cost is not increasing, but if one firm increases its price, the other firm will not, and they're going to lose market share. So this is Paul Sweeney's solution, King demand curve theory, or sticky price theory. They're all the same thing. Okay. Now let me go back to your PowerPoint slides, and then I hope this is chapter number 11. It will take a few seconds to upload because I don't find chapter 11 here. Oh, here it is. So let me share this. Just give me a second. I am going to that slide directly. Yes, here it is, I believe. Yeah. So I've done this. Oh, I thought okay, it was the second last, I believe, slide. So an appraisal of oligopoly, that is, some people, favor this market structure. So some believe that oligopolies are too powerful, results in productive and allocative inefficiency. Others take the view that oligopolies are at the cutting edge of new technological development. In the long run, push the average cost of production down because they are producing on large scale, because the firm size is pretty large. So that's all as far as chapter number 11, last chapter, is concerned. So these are the key concepts to remember: the importance of product differentiation. We have discussed two types of imperfect competition: monopolistic competition and oligopoly, and their characteristics. Monopolistically competitive firms have normal profits and excess capacity in the long run. The strategies of collusion and price leadership, we all discuss these points. So that's all as far as chapter number 11 is concerned. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.